For the best prices and service on Pokemon TCG singles and products, check out ccgcastle.com and use promo code Evolutionaries-5 for 5% off your next order.
Hello, Pokemon fans! I'm Professor K for the Pokemon Evolutionaries, and welcome back! We are back again with another Deck Tech Thursday after a 2-week hiatus, thanks to Sun and Moon Guardians Rising. Something we usually do when a new set comes out is we skip 1 week, but this time we had to actually skip 2 weeks because of Virginia Regionals, and also, let's just face it, the format is getting stale without Guardians Rising, so I felt like we kind of burned through all the decks that we could possibly do, and it's time now to move on to the Guardians Rising format moving forward. So I actually took some time to think for a bit and come up with what kind of decks I think are boosted by Guardians Rising. And much to my delight, and also thanks to Dylan Johns, by the way, for the idea behind it, Greninja BREAK. Who would have thought? It's back, guys, and it's good. It's really good. The only thing that was really preventing it from being really good before was Garb. And now we have something to take care of Garb, and we also get something to boost our attack damage as well, and it really makes the deck work again. Granted, we still have some struggles against Wob, but we can Lysander around that pretty easily, fairly easily anyways. So let's take a look at the new and improved Greninja BREAK list featuring Guardians Rising onward. So let's go ahead and look at the Pokemon lineup. First and foremost, we have something that we're used to seeing by now, and that is 4 copies of Talonflame. Talonflame has the Gale Wings ability that says, if this Pokemon is in your hand when you are setting up to play, you may put it face down as your active Pokemon. So you don't have to go through Fletchling, Fletchinder, you go straight to Talonflame, and it has a great first attack, only attack. Arrow Blitz does 40 damage for a single energy, and you search your deck for up to 2 cards and put them into your hand. Shuffle your deck afterwards. This is a great setup card. This is your ideal start. 95 to 98% of the time, this is where you want to start, is Talonflame. It's got 130 HP, so it's bulky. It also has a great attack, like I said, and you can put it straight down on your bench as your very first active Pokemon, or on your, and put it onto your field as your very first active Pokemon, which is fantastic in my opinion. And you can put this down even if you have a Froakie in hand, or you can choose not to even play it at all if you don't like the rest of your hand. You gotta remember that, guys. If you don't like the way your hand looks and you start a Talonflame, you can still choose to mulligan. It's an ability that says you may put it face down. So if you don't like it, just mulligan and try to get a better hand. You might start Froakie, but you'll have a better hand, hopefully, I would hope. So that is your first Pokemon. The next one we have here is 3 copies of Froakie. I choose to run the X and Y Pro number 138 because it's the cutest, but also the one in Breakpoint also has the same attack, which is Bubble. For a single water energy, flip a coin. If heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. So you can actually use this as a stall tactic if you don't set up properly. Granted, Froakie Bubble is kind of a last-ditch maneuver, but I've seen it actually work out really well in some tournaments, so that's one thing that's kind of neat. Next up here, we have 4 copies of Frogadier. For those of you who are not familiar with Greninja BREAK as a deck, you might be wondering why I'm running 3 Froakie but 4 Frogadier. So let me explain to you what this card does. Here you go. All right, first of all, 70 HP, water duplicates. Search your deck for up to 3 Frogadier and put them onto your bench. Shuffle your deck afterwards. So you only really need 1 Froakie, evolve into Frogadier, water duplicates, and boom, that's your bench now. That's why Greninja BREAK is really just so good, is you can put out all of these Frogadiers in 1 turn, well, I should say on your second turn, after you have Froakie in play. Now, there's other ways, of course, you can get around that. If you choose to play something like Wally, you can get into Frogadier on turn 1, but if you're going first, you can't attack first anyway, so it doesn't really make much of a difference. So you want to go first with the deck and start with Froakie and, or start with Talonflame and a Froakie on the bench, and then go into Frogadier. Talonflame also has free retreat, by the way, so you don't have to worry about paying an energy cost. Free retreat, switch it out, Frogadier, go ahead and water duplicates, set up your board, and get ready to start hitting for massive amounts of damage within very few turns. All right, next up, we have 4 copies of Greninja, Breakpoint Greninja. I actually like the fact when these were being given out as League Challenge what do they call them? Week challenge prizes. I got the first, second, third, and fourth place Greninja, and I like running one of each. I think it's kind of cool. But the main point is what the card does. 130 HP, great attacks. First and foremost, let's take a look at Shadow Stitching. Shadow Stitching says 40 damage until the end of your opponent's next turn. Each Pokemon your opponent has in play in his hand, in his or her hand, or in his or her discard pile, has no abilities. So you can shut down your opponent's abilities perfectly well with Shadow Stitching, which means Decidueye, great. You don't have to worry about them hitting you for that snipe damage if you choose to just Shadow Stitch every turn. You also have Moonlight Slash, which is an even better attack as far as damage output. Does 60 damage, plus if you return the water energy from this Pokemon to your hand, it does 20 more damage. So it can hit up to 80 damage for a single water energy. And there's ways to boost that, and we're going to see that here once we start going into not only our rest of our Pokemon lineup, but also into our trainer lineup. So there's Greninja. And now, finally, the big daddy of them all, Greninja BREAK. Greninja BREAK gives this Pokemon 170 HP, and Greninja BREAK retains the attacks, abilities, weaknesses, resistance, and retreat cost of the previous evolution. Greninja has free retreat. So does Talonflame. These have one. But free retreat, so Greninja BREAK has free retreat. So it's really good for a lot of reasons. Let's look at the ability that's on here. Giant Water Shuriken. Once during your turn before you attack, if this Pokemon is your active Pokemon, you may discard a water energy card from your hand, and if you do, put 6 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. So, let's say you've got an opponent that's sitting there that you've got, let's just say they've got one Pokemon that's active. You can Break Evolve, Giant Water Shuriken, hit for 60 with Water Shuriken by discarding a water energy, and Moonlight Slash for 80. That's 140 damage for essentially 2 energy. And if you have another Greninja BREAK on the bench, here, let's just do one of these. If you have another Greninja BREAK on the bench, here's what you can do. If this has a water energy on it, let's just say it does. You can Giant Water Shuriken, then free retreat, Giant Water Shuriken again, and then hit for 80 damage. So you're dealing 120 damage via Giant Water Shuriken, and then another 80 for Moonlight Slash. That's 200 damage, basically for 3 energy. Pretty darn powerful. And it's got pretty quick setup thanks to Frogadier putting him straight out onto the bench as well. And there's also still more ways to increase the damage. We have only just begun with this deck. All right, so Greninja BREAK is good. We know this. So let's take a look at what else makes this deck work. So the new build, I run 4 copies of N. So N is the card that you really want to be using more than anything, because this card does not like to discard resources very much. Each player shuffles his or her hand into his or her deck, and then each player draws a card for each of his or her remaining prize cards. Sometimes this can hurt you, sometimes this can help you. It all depends, just how the game is going for you. But I like 4N better than 4N 3 Sycamore. Or I'm sorry, 3N 4 Sycamore. So, as you guessed, I run 3 copies of Professor Sycamore. Discard your hand, draw 7 cards. Pretty easy. A lot of decks play 4. I think in this deck, 3 is the magic number, with 4N being the next one. Also, we run 2 copies of Lysander. Lysander, I think, is a very important card in this deck. I've seen some builds that run 1. I disagree. I feel like you need 2, because there's just too many threats out there, and Lysander is going to get you out of a lot of trouble if you're able to work around it. It also helps you hit for better numbers, too. If you've got damage in certain places, it lets you just kind of play with the board a bit and lets you hit where you want to and take knockouts where you want to, as opposed to just letting things sit there and just, snipe them over and over again. Also, 1 copy of Ace Trainer. Ace Trainer is a card that is pretty much a staple in Greninja. I actually would like to play 2 of these. I just don't know what to cut. Each player shuffles his or her hand into his or her deck, then draws 6 cards. Your opponent draws 3 cards, but you can only use this card if you have more prize cards left than your opponent. And typically, they're going to be knocking out a Froakie or a Talonflame before you're knocking anything out. So Ace Trainer is a great card. It hurts your opponent and it helps you, and I love it. I love it. Like I said, I would love to have a second one. I just don't know what to cut. Now, this is where I start to play with the numbers a bit. And granted, it's a little situational, but we have VS Seeker and we have ways of making this work. All right, the next card I play here is 1 copy of Professor Kukui. Professor Kukui says, draw 2 cards during this turn. Your Pokemon's attacks do 20 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So, let's look at the numbers again. You got a Greninja active, Greninja BREAK on the bench. Giant Water Shuriken, switch, Giant Water Shuriken, There's 120. Go ahead and play Professor Kukui. So that's 140 total damage. I'm sorry, it's 1660, whatever. And then you can Moonlight Slash for not 80, but 100. So now you're dealing 100 plus 120. That's 220 damage, again, for 3 water energies. 1 for the attack and 2 to discard. Just saying, that's a big number. And it gets even bigger. We're still not done yet. We also play 1 copy of Fisherman. I like the old art on this. You take 4 basic energy cards from your discard pile, or if there's less than that, you grab whatever is there, put them into your hand. Perfect. So we're discarding energy, we're getting it back with Fisherman. Works well. All right, let's take a look at our item lineups next. We have 4 copies of Via Seeker. Put a supporter card from your discard pile into your hand. Very straightforward. Again, you're going to want to be using probably Ace Trainer at least once again. You're probably going to want to be using Fisherman once or twice. Kukui, I can see you using 2 to 3 times. Lysander, you know, Via Seeker is just a great card and it really helps you get your supporters back. All right, next up we have 4 copies of Dive Ball. Dive Ball says, search your deck for a water Pokemon, reveal it, put it into your hand, shuffle your deck afterwards. Every bit of this deck that you're going to be searching out is water type. So it makes sense that you would run 4 copies of Dive Ball because you're not going to be searching for these Talonflames. This is what you want to start with. This is stuff you want to discard later after it becomes dead cards in your hand. This is only for the start. So this is going to search out everything else. Your Froakies, your Frogadiers, your Greninjas, and your Greninja Breaks. Makes sense. Also, just in case, you never know, you might have a little bit of trouble setting up and you have to use an Ultra Ball. Now, Ultra Ball is good for a couple of reasons. Number 1, you can discard an extra Talonflame in your hand or 2 if you have them. And it also gives you more search options to get the Pokemon that you need. Sometimes 4 Dive Ball is just not enough. So 2 copies of Ultra Ball, discard 2 cards from your hand. If you do, search your deck for a Pokemon, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle your deck. Some people like to play Level Ball. I still am a little bit more convinced that Ultra Ball is the move on this one. For now. Just for now. Maybe Level Ball in the future. But for now, Ultra Ball. All right, now we get into what else makes this deck just ridiculous. All right, so we already talked about how we're going to hit for 80 and then 60, 140 at least if you're able to Water Shuriken once. We're talking 200 if you can Water Shuriken twice. Then we went on to say, okay, we can hit for 200. Now we can also hit for 220. Now it gets even better. Sun and Moon Guardians Rising brought us another card that helps this deck tremendously hit for magical numbers. Choice Band. Choice Band, the attacks of this Pokemon, the card this Pokemon is attached to, do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon GX or active Pokemon EX after or before applying weakness and resistance. So, let's take a look at the numbers once again. All right, so we Shuriken, we switch, we Shuriken again, there's 120. We play a Kukui, there's 140 total damage for the turn. We attach a Choice Band to Greninja Break, okay? So now we've added another 30 and we're Moonlight Slashing for 80. So we've got 80, 110, 120, 130, plus 120, 250 total damage across the board with 3 water energy. That's it. 3 water energy. You're spreading 60 and you're smacking for 110 up to 130 with this attack for a single water energy. That is good. That is really good. And we play 3 Choice Bands. Maybe we can cut this to 2, but for now, I think I stick with 3. If we do cut it to 2, maybe that's where we find our second Ace Trainer. This is just a list in progress. Next up, the other card that saves this deck, because all along you've got to be thinking, man, Garbodor really just destroys this deck. What are we going to do about Garb? What are we going to do about Wobbuffet? Well, the Lysanders are here for Wobbuffet. That's why we have 2. That's why we have 4 VS Seekers. But Garb has always been an issue. How do you play against Garb? Well, the answer is Field Blower. Choose up to 2 in any combination of Pokemon Tool cards and Stadium cards in play, yours or your opponent's, and discard them. This card saves Greninja, brings it back from the grave, and makes it a viable, very, very good option for tournaments going forward. Field Blower and Choice Band have single-handedly brought Greninja Break back to life. I love it. This is my favorite Pokemon. It always will be, and I'm super happy to say that this deck actually has a chance of making it again. All right, next up we have 2 copies of Super Rod. Choose 3 of any combination of Pokemon and basic energy cards from your discard pile and put them back into your deck. another way to get back your energy that you lost, another way to get back these Pokemon if they happen to fall as well. So it works out really, really well. Also, we have a single copy of Enhanced Hammer. Discard a special energy attached to one of your opponent's Pokemon. It's a good tech card. I like it. I also wanted to find room for Team Flare Grunt in here, but I couldn't find the room for both Team Flare Grunt and Hammer, and I couldn't find room for 2 Ace Trainers, so it's a work in progress. It's still a list that needs some messing around with here or there. We also play 1 copy of Max Potion. Max Potion, heal all damage from one of your Pokemon. If you do, discard all energy attached from that Pokemon. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to Moonlight Slash, pick that energy up, and then next turn, before you attach an energy, Max Potion away whatever damage was done to it. It makes your opponent now have to, once again, hit that same Greninja and try to knock it out in 1 shot, and if they don't, it's a 3 shot. And you will make them pay for those 3 shots. This is your 6 prize game right here, 2, 4, 6. Anything else they're knocking out? 1 prize. So you're playing a 7 prize game most of the time. And this further accelerates your chances of winning just based off of that prize trade. All right, our stadium of choice here is 3 copies of Silent Lab. This shuts down a lot of stuff. It shuts down people's Shamans. It shuts down people's Tapu Leles. It shuts down Volcanion. It shuts down Wobbuffet. Who would have thought? Now we have a way of shutting down Wobbuffet as well. So now we have no concerns about our abilities being shut down as long as we can get Silent Lab in play on our turn. Wow. That's a big deal. That is a huge deal, in fact. So what you're telling me right now is that we can Shadow Stitch and shut down Decidueye. We can put out Silent Lab and shut down Wobbuffet. We can play Field Blower and shut down Garbodor. What are we afraid of? Not much. Not much at all, actually. This deck has a lot of auto wins and not very many auto losses. So I'm just saying, you know, even against a deck like Lapras, for instance, you're hitting for 190 damage to the active if you're using Moonlight Slash with a Choice Band and a Kukui and 1 giant Water Shuriken. 80, 90, 100, 110, 120, 130, 190. There's your 190, and 2 Water Shurikens will knock it out. Pretty nuts. It really is. I gotta say, I'm super impressed with this deck. All right, let's get on to our energy count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 water energy and 1 splash energy. In the past, we saw more splash energy, but I think now we really don't need splash energy quite as much because we have ways of getting back our Pokemon. We've got 2 Super Rods. It's really not super hard to get them back, and you want to have more Shuriken power abilities here, and I think that this is probably the right number. So, with that being said, what do you guys think? You think Greninja is back? Is it back in contention again? Is it the play? Who knows? You guys be the judges. You guys test this deck out for yourself. Let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Let me know your thoughts about Greninja coming back. You know, are you surprised? Were you expecting it? Just let me know. I'm curious either way. So anyways, guys, let me know what you guys think. Be sure to like this video if you liked it, comment down below, and subscribe for more Pokemon TCG content here on the Pokemon Evolutionaries. Thank you guys so much for the love and support, and we will see you guys next time. I'm Professor K for the Pokemon Evolutionaries. You all take care. Have a great day.